Hi, today we will give a simple introduction to agent-based models. We will introduce the key components of an agent-based model, talk about the associated pros and cons of this type of modeling approach, and give some examples of agent-based models that were used during the COVID-19 pandemic. But what is an agent-based model? An agent-based model, or ABM, is a collection of autonomous decision-making individuals called agents, which can interact with each other and with their environment. Because of the generality of the setup, ABMs can be used to describe complex phenomena by designating rules for the agents and describing how the environment may vary. On the screen now is an example of a simulation of an agent-based model that we will discuss later called COVID-sim. The environment here consists of cells and microcells, and the agents in this case are people who can become infected. As you can see, infections in red are spreading throughout the environment as agents interact with each other and the infection spreads further. Okay, now let us look in more detail at the components that make up an ABM. Firstly, let us have a look at agents. As we have previously mentioned, agents are autonomous decision-making individuals. This means they are individual entities that are able to make their own decisions. Some examples of agents include cars, businesses, cells, and as we have seen here, people. Within the ABM, these people may be able to move around within their environment and also encounter and interact with other agents. Now that we have discussed agents, let us have a look at what else makes up an ABM. Often, an ABM will consist of a structure, which is the environment that the agents will move and interact within. Additionally, a set of rules must be specified. These rules are what will guide the decisions made by the agents. A structure, for example, can be as simple as the grid that we see here, with our person agent in the middle. Our structure may also contain this person's home and workplace, which they may interact with, and of course will also contain other agents. Some simple rules that could be implemented within this structure could be the person moving around in the environment and going home on the weekends. Additionally, if we consider the colour red as infectious and green as susceptible, a red person may interact with a green person and infect them with a certain probability. What we have presented here is a very simple structure and set of rules, but these can be easily expanded depending on the level of complexity required. Now, let's discuss some of the pros and cons associated with agent-based modelling. Firstly, what are some reasons that we might want to use an ABM? We can use them to capture emergent behaviour. What do we mean by this? Emergent behaviour is the outcome of many individuals acting together. Naturally, by simulating many agents together in the same environment, an ABM can capture emergent behaviour resulting from the properties of the individual agents. For example, an infection trend that might emerge if each individual agent had to wear a face mask. Next, ABMs allow for a natural description of complex phenomena. For example, by increasing the complexity of the rules and structure of the ABM, we can use the model to capture the complexity of real-life phenomena that affect individual agents. Other models would struggle to do this. For example, ODE models often model groups of agents that share a similar property together. To model individual agents with an ODE model, you would need an equation for each agent, and this becomes very complicated and hard to understand very quickly, as you can imagine if you had thousands of agents. Finally, agent-based modeling is flexible. We can easily specify different structures and rules depending on the processes we are trying to model. The rules and structure may even change throughout the course of the simulation. ABMs give a natural and clear framework to introduce the levels of complexity required to model real-life phenomena. Of course, every modeling method has its associated difficulties, and agent-based modeling is no different. We have just mentioned how ABMs allow for a level of complexity necessary to model real-life phenomena. But this is also a double-edged sword, because increasing the complexity makes a model harder to understand and analyze. For example, when modeling a pandemic, each person will have multiple properties associated with them, and so will the structure of the model and the set of rules also. This means that the model will have thousands of parameters, if not more, making it hard to analyze which parameters might be most important. This level of complexity also leads to another difficulty associated with ABMs. They are very computationally expensive. You can imagine that simulating a model that is trying to capture a real-life phenomena will involve simulating thousands of agents and thousands of parameters through multiple time steps. As a result, very good computers or even supercomputers are needed to run large-scale agent-based simulations efficiently. Let us now look at agent-based modeling in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have briefly mentioned COVID-sim. If you'd like to know more about this model, please look at the COVID-sim video on our channel. For the remainder of this video, we will discuss another agent-based model that was used to model the pandemic, COVID-sim. COVID-sim contains a complicated structure where people are able to travel to work, home, school, and other community places while interacting with other agents. Each person can also progress through multiple stages of infection. For example, as we see here, an agent person will start off as susceptible and progress through exposed and infected with mild symptoms before becoming recovered. COVID-sim sets up the agent population with multiple complicated parameters that enable some interesting research questions to be answered. An example of which is that the ABM structure allows groups of people to be associated to schools. We could then use the model to see how school closures would affect infection levels. A key question that agent-based models can answer is how non-pharmaceutical interventions, such as social distancing and lockdowns, affect infection levels. Here we see two example simulations from COVID-sim, with time on the x-axis and infection cases on the y. On the left figure, we have a simulation of which no interventions were put in place. As we expect, infections are very high. Now on the right is a simulation where people are subject to social distancing rules. Now we see that the infection cases are much lower. This is just one example where an agent-based model is used to model complex real-life phenomena such as the COVID-19 pandemic. I hope you have enjoyed this brief introduction to agent-based models, and I hope to see you soon for another video.